Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Canastra, co-host of the Content Mix podcast, brought to you by multilingual content agency Vera Content. My co-host, Shaheen, isn't joining us today, but I'm here with a very special guest, Josh Saxon. Josh is an expert in all things content marketing, with a wide range of experience in social media, content writing, translation, SEO, PPC, web design, email marketing, and many other areas. Having previously worked at Vera Content as the head of production and later the director of marketing and business development, in between many other content marketing roles, Josh now works as a freelance content marketer. Originally from the UK, Josh now lives in Madrid, my previous home, where he works with brands across the United Kingdom, Spain, and the US. And today we're going to talk about how to use content to get more leads, which is something we've been collaborating with Josh on here at Vera Content for the past year or so. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Josh to the show. Welcome, Josh. Good to see you this morning.
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining us. It's really, it's always fun to have people that I don't know, but also really a good opportunity to have people that I've worked with before come on the show. Just to have a conversation and share their expertise about everything related to content marketing. And you definitely have a lot to share. We've been collaborating, like I said, over the past year, and it's been a fun experience. I've learned a lot along the way, and you've been very helpful to our overall goal at Vera Content. So we figured, why not have you on the show and kind of share your insights about how we can use content really to gain more leads. But before we start the episode and dive into that topic, I want to give the audience a bit more context about you. So could you just start out by telling us a bit more about yourself and how you ended up doing what you're doing and doing it from Madrid? Because as I said, you're originally from the UK.
Yeah, that's right. Well, good to hear that I've been helpful, and I hope I don't disappoint while you pick my brains here. But yes, I'm originally from the UK. I'm from just outside of London, and I started my career as a newspaper journalist for my local newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for a few years. Then I went into some entertainment journalism in London. And then as I got a bit older, I did things more in like digital marketing, content marketing, and that kind of thing, because journalism is great fun, but it's not always where the money is. So kind of looking for things where I could improve my financial situation a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of learned lots of different things like more content marketing and digital advertising, that sort of thing. And then I was in my early 20s, and I saw a lot of my friends that had done the more, I suppose, traditional route. They'd gone to university, had gap years, and they travelled.
Mm.
And I kind of went into quite a heavy career from a young age. So I just wanted to just get a little taste of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had plans to travel Europe, and I came to Madrid sort of over a decade ago, and I'm still here. So I'm the world's worst traveller.
You didn't make it too far.
Didn't make it very far at all. No.
Madrid definitely has that allure, I have to say. It kind of trapped you in. I got away. But I think for a lot of people, they have very similar stories. Oh, I'll do 1 year in Madrid. And now you're a decade later, you're still there.
I just really like the sort of lifestyle here. And I did the sort of traditional traveling gap year things like teaching English. And I worked in an Irish pub for a bit.
That's fun.
And then so that was fun. And then I just kind of got back into sort of content marketing while I was here. Worked for several different companies. And then till recently, just before the pandemic, I decided I wanted to go freelance. I just wanted to kind of, I suppose I had very specific ideas of how I wanted to work in content marketing, both in terms of the product I wanted to offer, the services I wanted to offer, and how I worked. So that was my main sort of inspiration to be freelance. And very fortunately, I did that, I think, just before the pandemic. So I was where I think a lot of people were just kind of scrambling to start working from home. I'd kind of just got it all set up. So
you had a good intuition then in that moment.
Maybe. I've been doing that since, my concept of time during the pandemic is totally out the window. So a few years now. And I'm very happy doing that. I'm serving just a small sort of roster of clients, 4 or 5 clients at a time. Doing mostly mostly content marketing, so sort of long form articles and blog posts, with usually with the intention of, I think, educating their clients, and presenting the client as a sort of authority and expert in that industry. As well as short form posts, which would have more of a kind of human interest kind of style, where I'd interview some of their staff and their network, which works really well to repurpose that on social media as well, and help kind of build their community. So
and I feel like thanks for sharing all that about your life, and I feel like for the average person to hear that like trajectory, they're probably like, that's not really normal. But I feel like with a lot of content marketers I met, many of them have experience in journalism, which really plays into, the whole storytelling of content marketing and how that's so important, and building that community through storytelling. And also a lot of people who moved abroad and worked these odd jobs of being an English teacher and working in an Irish pub, like these type of things, like it really helps communication skills and knowing about how to adapt to different cultures. I feel like it's very interesting to hear that, because I feel like it's a similar pattern. I mean, look at Shaheen. She was a journalist and now she's working in our company in content marketing. So it's definitely interesting to see that trajectory. Totally. And you mentioned basically some of the work and services you're doing now, but could you elaborate a bit more about like some of the brands, like what kind of brands are you working with and how do you usually collaborate them? Because obviously you make your own schedule, you're kind of building their brands in your own, I guess, process that you probably have, trademarked at this point.
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's 4 or 5 regular clients in totally different industries. One of them is waste management. One of them is an architect. Obviously, do stuff for you guys in content marketing. Another one is a marketing platform. So they do kind of overlap, which is nice. And there's a lot of things that I sort of develop and learn from one client that I can maybe use with another one. So they do have a lot of overlap. They're all sort of in terms of the essentially package of services I offer each one, they're all a bit different, which from my view is quite nice, because I have there's a kind of variability in what I do day to day. But at the same time, I'm still able to kind of structure it the way I want to. I don't know. I feel like a lot of traditional jobs will say like no 2 days are the same.
Right.
And in my experience, that's either completely untrue. The day is very, very, very boring. You just speak to different people, maybe, or it just means it's just chaos. So I feel like I found like a nice balance of offering different services, but I'm still able to keep my days quite structured so I can be efficient and productive.
That's awesome.
So yeah, in terms of they're all quite different, and they all work in different ways in terms of collaboration. So like I said, there's one client that I do a lot of more human interest stuff. I just talked to a lot of people in the network. For example, they just made a big charity donation, so I was able to talk to that charity last night and get some nice quotes from them. So this is all really content that I can use on their blog, on their social media. I'll probably send a press release to local newspapers as well. So it's kind of got a lot of legs. I can get a lot of mileage out of that one piece. And then I'll take that and convert it into several pieces of social media content. So that kind of collaboration is really important, and that's where I think my journalism history really comes into play. And kind of knowing how to pitch local newspapers helps as well. And I think just kind of on the topic that you just mentioned, I think having interview skills, I think, is really important for content, because you might go at a piece of content and you have an idea of what it is, maybe even what the title of it is and the angle. But I think until you actually start speaking to people and you get into depth of what they're about, you'll find, I think, a nugget in there that you didn't see before, that you can actually hang the whole piece on. And I think it's really, and that really helps as well, I think, in the kind of the other side of it, which is when you're creating content, you're creating for a user, and you really want to know what they're looking for. And I think sometimes that's not always obvious. That's not always obvious, especially to clients who feel like they've got a really good idea of what their product and service is, but they don't actually understand the emotional drivers that are going to make that user convert into a customer. I think, maybe a good example is insurance. They might think that all the different features of the insurance and everything you kind of get is really what motivates people in that respect, but usually it's about security, and these are quite emotional things. So when you're writing the content, you need to have that in mind. It's really about their family, about how they feel, and insurance is a kind of boring product, really. But the reality of what drives people to buy that product. So I think that takes that kind of journalism skill that I would use in creating stories. I would also try and use to talk to people, talk to clients of my clients to kind of find out. So I might write a piece on it, but I'm also finding out a little bit about why they might use that service, and that actually then I can take that, and then I might have 5 or 10 other articles I can do.
Right.
So I think the ability to have a good conversation with people is really important as well.
Yeah. So it's like, I was just thinking too, like, it's really good that you have these journalism skills, but it seems like you also need to have some degree in psychology or something like that to really understand like the emotional aspects of it. And which kind of leads me to my next question, which was, I feel like you have a lot of life experience that led you into where you are today in your professional trajectory. But in terms of like specializing, we mentioned before that you do SEO work, you are doing PPC, all these things. And a lot of our listeners, sometimes they're experts themselves in content marketing. They're people who are, inspired to maybe kind of follow a path that you have done in your life, like making your own business and doing that. How did you learn and specialize in those areas? Just like at SEO, like, did you do courses? Did you just learn from experience?
A lot of it was from experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite lucky. One company I worked at, the way they structured their company was that the marketing and SEO departments were totally separate, which I felt was quite unusual because there's just so much overlap in what those two departments are doing, but they were quite sort of siloed. So basically, it didn't feel like it made sense, but it meant that I had to focus exclusively on SEO for the whole time I was there. So that just kind of that was maybe that helped me basically become an expert in that one thing. So it's, I think for the company's benefit, it wasn't fantastic, but for mine personally, it enabled me to work that way. And then I just developed that part of my career as I went freelance. So it's really just been, and that's kind of why it was the right time to go freelance. I felt like I had, because I wanted to offer, a kind of essentially package of services to people, because people, maybe a larger company is looking for one expert in that one thing, but usually they want you to solve a range of different problems. So I feel like if you can write content, if you know about SEO and local SEO, and some level of maybe Google ads, Facebook ads, and email marketing, that kind of covers a lot of bases. And I felt I had good experience in all of those different things. Yeah, mostly from work experience. And then I think I've just got a little bit of like an obsessive personality. Like if I don't know something, I'll just kind of go down a rabbit hole on it. And I find I don't think you really have to have, I've never bought any of these expensive courses. You might see like an $800 SEO course, or obviously you could, do a university course. I've often found that, you could buy like a $15 course from, Udemy or something like that, or Skillshare or one of these things. And it's still pretty comprehensive, or you can buy a book that will cover most things. And then it's about doing it. And I think that's the cool thing about like learning SEO or content marketing. You can create your own website pretty quickly, pretty cheaply, and just practice. There's nothing really stopping you from doing that.
So a lot of it's like experience based. I feel like that's like, it's inspiring to hear, right? Because I feel like a lot of people get obsessed with, I have to do this course and I have to, do this and that in order to get a goal. But a lot of it's, taking risk and also just having like motivation to do that. And I feel like learning a language, for example, you're not going to learn unless you actually try to speak the language. Any skill, you have to really put it into the doing part, as you mentioned, is really important.
And I would say that, what you just said is like, you feel like you have to do all this, and part of that feeling you have to do those things, I think, is partly like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You look around you and just naturally you're going to see people that you feel like have got a lot more experience than you and stuff, and that's great. You shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. You should be surrounding yourself with people you can learn from. But I would get out of your head that you need some sort of special talent or 2 or 3 years specific training before you can start. No, I mean, training and education and whatever courses you can take, and then just obviously blogs and things will put you in the right direction, and you'll start learning what books you should be reading and that sort of stuff. And learn as you go, but definitely start, because you won't really start. It's a bit like driving a car, isn't it? Like you can read the highway code as we have in the UK. You can read it, but it doesn't mean you can drive a car. You have to start driving the car first. Even sort of after you've passed your test, you haven't really learned to drive properly yet, because you haven't had enough sort of dangerous situations where you've had to learn how to react and stuff. So you have to do it really.
Yeah, from being someone from a very cold part of the United States, definitely learned a lot when you skid out on ice or those things. A lot of it, but it's true. A lot of it you have to practice, like the theory that goes behind it. But then a lot of it, really, what matters most is the practice. Yeah. Now, I imagine, and I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore in terms of the topic, but I imagine a lot of people hire your services because they want more leads. And I feel like that's, the biggest, motivation for all of these things in terms of content strategy, organic or not. So could you describe, in your opinion, how content marketing can be used to generate more leads, especially for people who maybe don't understand the direct connection there?
Yeah. So I think one of the most important things about content marketing is, like I said, with the kind of journalism connection there, you really want to drill down and find out what drives people to make decisions, what their pain points are, and that should really be the basis of how you're generating content. So I think there's I suppose the common mistake a lot of people make is they feel like people are interested in, like I said, in all the different features of the business.
Right.
And they're not really explaining the benefits, because I think they maybe feel it's very obvious, but I think you have to lay that out, but you also have to do your research. So I think you've got essentially a buyer's journey with anything. You can obviously be I suppose quite specific about it, and I suppose directly towards the end of the customer journey, where you're going to be perhaps with a pay-per-click campaign, you're going to be competing on keywords that have a high sort of commercial intent. So people that are looking for an agency, that they're using keywords like agency services, pricing, that sort of thing. They're quite far along. They seem more or less ready to convert already. But if you can catch them a little bit earlier and you're already on their radar while they're doing their initial research, that's where content marketing, I think, comes into play a lot. You're answering a lot of questions. So, one of the best sort of, the most obvious piece of content you can create is something that starts with how to. These things do very well on search engines, on YouTube as well. That's, YouTube, as a search engine, I think how to is the most commonly searched phrase. So yeah, that's kind of, and you're doing a bit more than that as well. I think you're building trust with people.
Exactly.
You want to establish yourself as an authority and an expert in what you're doing. And I think that's it's definitely worked for me as well. When I've been looking for services. And I think, as a father now, for example, you can see that's content marketing huge in the kind of parenting industry, because I've got questions like every day.
You're constantly learning.
These things do not come with an instruction manual. You have to be constantly Googling. And then often I'm finding myself on the Pampers website, so next time I go to the supermarket, Pampers is top of mind. And maybe consciously or subconsciously, I like Pampers a little bit more because they help me with something.
Right. They're a brand you trust.
Exactly. Sure. They're a brand I trust. Yeah.
And I feel like I always tell people when they ask like content marketing, like what's the mission or goal or objective with that? And it's always, for me personally, I think it's the whole storytelling aspect. And in a world that we're more digital and we're always like you said, Googling things, looking for information, we would just want to find a brand that really we can trust and feel like they are hearing our needs, even if, like you said, I'm assuming Pampers has like, good how-to for parents and different like tips and tricks. So even though you're not directly buying Pampers, you're going to be using their website and then kind of building this trust. Like you said, maybe subconsciously, but that's the whole point, right? It's the brand really needs to position itself in a way that it shows that they care. And I think that's what the power of language does here in the sense of using content to
and it's
connect.
Like you said, I mean, people hire me because they want results at the end of the day.
Of course.
And I think content marketing is sort of notoriously difficult to track in that respect versus, let's say, Google Ads, which is just, luxurious in terms of how you can demonstrate the return on investment there. You've spent this much money and you earned this much in sales or leads.
Exactly. I think, speaking of results, though, this is always a question I get, or we always hear all the time, is what is more effective, organic SEO strategy or paid ad strategy? And I feel like it's the question of the chicken for the egg, what comes first. So in your opinion, your experience, I know this is not really a black and white question. I also hate that I'm asking it because, again, it's hard to really, I guess, conceptualize or like say this in a general way, because I think it really depends on the brand and their stage of growth and where they're at, their budgets, etc. But in your opinion, like which of the two would you recommend brands starting with?
Well, like you said, it totally depends. That is probably the digital marketer's go-to answer. It depends because it does. So, so that's the benefit of working with someone that can recommend something that's suited to your specific industry, your business, your budget. But I think, so just to give you a bit of less of a wishy-washy answer, so it depends on your industry, for example. So I think content marketing definitely lends itself to some industries better than others. If you think about there are some services that are much harder to create content for. For example, a plumber, let's say. Okay. I've got a problem in my house. I've got a leaking pipe, but I don't really care about plumbing. I just want the problem solved. Right. My customer journey is going to be fairly short. I think I'm going to Google plumbers in my area and I'm going to click the first result. And maybe I might look at a few different websites, but I don't think I'm going to heavily get involved in. And after the problem's solved, I no longer care. Right. So when you're sort of maybe like a landlord or kind of the domestic plumbing situation, content marketing is going to be a lot harder. I'd probably recommend them going certainly on Google Ads, pay-per-click ads. But then I would also recommend local SEO. Right. And that actually involves a lot of content as well. You should have a lot of content on your website with local keywords and that sort of thing. So, but I probably with a client like that, I'd probably say, let's go with Google Ads first. But I mean, ideally, if they've got the budget, you do both. Because I think, it's not a great analogy, but I would sort of compare like content marketing or SEO, for example, like organic SEO. It's more of a long game. So I sort of equate it to like index fund investing. You're not looking to get rich quick, but it's pretty stable, and you're going to get results. It's probably going to take you at least 9 months until you sort of see any decent results. Right. But as long as you're consistent with it and you don't jump ship and you keep up with it, you're going to see some results over the long term. And then Google Ads is maybe a little bit more like picking stocks, because if you don't know what you're doing, you might pick some keywords that aren't very profitable, but you still spent some money on the clicks there, and it would it will still take you a bit of time to get good at it. Right. But you might lose some money, but then you might gain a lot of money. So it's a little bit more, I suppose, risky as such. But you could see results a lot quicker. So
a lot of it's trial and error, right? As well, kind of just
you need to.
What we're saying before with your career, you got to take a risk sometimes in order to see how it pans out, and this is something that applies to.
And to get good at Google Ads, you really need the data, and to get the data, you need to spend some money. So for clients with very very low budgets, that might not be something that or that we'll look at it look at it after a month and be like, where are my results? That kind of client is probably not a great one for spending money on Google Ads, for example.
Right.
So yeah, it really depends. But ultimately, I would say if you can do both, then do both. If you've got the resources and the
time too,
the time and the money to do it, because organic SEO is still not free. You still got to pay people to do it and to invest the time.
Right.
But I would say both really, and they if you do both, the wonderful thing is they can support each other. I'm talking specifically about Google Ads. Here is you can do a lot of keyword research through your Google Ads, and you can find out what keywords work pretty quickly. And then that can inform your organic strategy, because you can be like, okay, well, this particular keyword is actually bringing in conversions. I should definitely invest in a 1,500 word article about this. And then you can be really like getting a lot of great Google real estate, because they can type in that keyword, you're in the Google Ads, but then you're also the first organic result as well. You're really sort of improving your chances of getting those clicks and conversions. So yeah.
Now you mentioned data, the importance of data, right? Is that the best way to track content? And if so, like what areas are you really looking to see in terms of tracking data? Because I'm sure the data then will help you refine your strategy as you go along. No, it's like the numbers you see, the trends you get. So I guess maybe what trends are you looking for? What areas are you actually like investigating, I guess, to see?
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is the big a big part of the job as a content marketer, digital marketer. It's sometimes an area that I think writers might overlook, because they're writers and they tend to be more creative in nature and not so much with the graphs and the charts. But it's definitely worth trying to get good at that. And really, because like you said, people hire me for results, and if I can't present them with a report that kind of explains why maybe we didn't do so well here, you have to look at that data and try and work out why. And that way, so sometimes you have a good idea of what's going to work, but sometimes you'll be massively surprised about one client, for example. I had a pretty good idea that people would be interested in the human interest stuff and how the company works and what a day in the life is like for people that work in that industry. And then pictures of trucks, machinery and stuff on Instagram. I was like, really? Are people, that was my just, not really having a great idea of how that industry worked, but people love pictures of trucks in that industry. I was totally wrong. So, you have to look at your, you have to look at your Facebook insights there and see what's getting the clicks, what's getting the comments. I think comments and shares are a little bit more indicative of what people are really engaging with. And that's, especially shares, because that's what's going to really increase your reach. And get you the results you're looking to get there. But so obviously, with going back to Google Ads, I think tracking your leads and having good conversion tracking, which is not that easy to do very well, but you want to make sure you're collecting as much information about your users and clients as possible, and trying to find out exactly which keywords people are clicking in, exactly which ones are getting the conversions, and then that's how you can have a much better idea of where you should be spending your budget. And basically, by the end of the month, you should be able to present your clients with like, here's the work I did, here's what I learned, here's what we're doing, and this is what worked, this is what didn't work. And I think, I think learning how to make a good report is really good for when clients, obviously, they're looking for results, and you should be able to explain to them what their return on their investment is and what they're getting for their money.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned like a report, for example, Google Analytics. Now, these are some of the probably more useful tools when you're trying to implement a lead generation strategy and actually understand how you're performing. So in general, besides these two, are there other tools that you would recommend for people to be using when they're doing a lead generation strategy? And also in terms of like the type of content as a tool, are there certain like content types such as ebooks, white papers, or case studies that you think are like essential tools in this process as well?
Okay, yeah. So in terms of tools, yeah, Google Analytics is a big one. That's gonna tell us a lot about what content's getting the most sort of traffic and clicks. But that that in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that's not the whole picture. So you might have a blog post that's doing fantastically well, but then you might look at Google Search Console, for example, and that will show you the kind of things people are searching to get to these posts. And you might find these search terms it's completely irrelevant to what you do. So you'll and then you'll realize, okay, so we've got quite a big bounce rate here. So people are coming onto this article and disappearing straight away. That's not great for your SEO to be increasing your bounce rate there. So it might actually tell you that you've got a fantastic post that's getting a lot of traffic, but you need to get rid of it because it's not doing you any good. So Google Analytics alone isn't going to get you there. So yeah, Google Search Console will and you can connect those two tools to give you a bit of a better idea of who the people are that are coming onto these posts. And then you might do things like A/B testing. I think that's something I think Facebook ads is really good for because it's much cheaper than Google ads.
Right.
So you can target people in an industry or people that are likely to buy your product, and you can run two different ads with them and compare which one got the most clicks and had the highest click-through rate or conversion rates, and then that can inform your content strategy. You're going to want a good CRM as well because a big part of content marketing is when you're and that kind of leads into the next part of your question being essentially lead magnets, so ebooks, white papers, you said, reports, this kind of thing. A big part of that is you've got a fantastic piece of content that's much more detailed than anything you might offer for free via social media or your website, your blog or whatever, and you'll be offering that in exchange for an email address.
Right.
That then allows you to continue that conversation with that client. You might sort of put them into an email nurture sequence where you're giving them perhaps more content, more value, and building that trust even more. So by the time they're at the end of their buyer journey, you're top of mind and they know who to come to. But in terms of those different lead magnet types, ebook is probably the most common one.
Right.
A short ebook that's giving people a bit more information, and that would probably end with a big sort of call to action to get in touch for your products or services. And again, you would take their email address for that. White papers, I feel are quite effective with more like B2B marketing.
Okay.
So like when you're a business marketing to another business, I think that where that particular potential client or user is heavily interested in what you do, and and again something like that you can when you're managing different aspects of someone's marketing, you can usually take a report or white paper and use that as a press release as well, so you can get even more value out of it. And what else did we talk about? Ebooks, white
papers, case studies as well.
Case studies are fantastic, I think, to help with. Sorry, we got a little cameo there from my dog.
Oh yeah.
Case studies, I think, are really fantastic thing to keep on your website,
right?
Because that really, I think, helps with the conversions. And again, I think those case studies, I think, when they're written well, can be really, really compelling. If you focus on like how you've really transformed the lives or the businesses of the subject of these case studies, and you focus on that, so that the user can put themselves in the mind of, okay, this is how it will feel if I work with these people. Those are great things to have on your website in and around the areas where you're sort of close to closing them. And I think, again, that's where data comes into play. You want to look at your website, and you can use Google Analytics for this. You can see kind of the customer journey. And you can see, for example, that you might find that a lot of people always visit the about page before they get in touch. They always want to know who they're dealing with before they get in touch with people.
Exactly.
That's a really important bit of information, because you realize that that's something that you should actually have And you should, you can you can actually get people to that stage a bit quicker. You want to make sure that's actually quite a prominent part of landing pages to find out about the company. So yeah, I think case studies and when placed in the right area can be really effective.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely feel like in my experience, maybe more like ebooks and white papers are more for like generating interest, while like the case studies, I feel like I see that people want to see that when they're like in conversation about like a potential service. They're like, do you have a case study that we can look at? Because they want to see how the results are going to be and like what you've done for other companies that are similar to theirs.
Yeah.
So definitely like kind of like you said, the customer journey is so important, looking at each phase, because each piece of content kind of fills a certain aspect or like kind of has its place along the way, which is so important, I think, in terms of really nourishing a lead that you have coming in.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, again, I think, I don't know, I saw an example recently. I think with the content you're offering, you really want to be offering as much value as possible. I think it's something like a sort of 90-10 split in terms of how much you're just giving value and how much you're trying to sell your services. I just from personal experience, we're planning a wedding. Right. So I was looking for photographers. And one particular photographer had essentially some content marketing on offer, but it was just his price list. He wanted my email address in exchange for a price list, which didn't feel like he was offering me any value. He was like he was just gatekeeping his prices.
Exactly.
And I didn't do it because I felt like, okay, well, I'm not there yet. I just feel like as soon as I give you my email, you're just going to aggressively market to me because you've not really. I feel like pricing something you can at least give an idea of on your website, so I know whether or not I'm going to waste my time. So that felt like ineffective content marketing. You weren't really solving a massive problem for me. I can find out pricing elsewhere; it's not that hard. Whereas I think if the piece of content was something about getting me, because a wedding's an emotional thing, he could have actually got me excited about the
day itself. Yeah,
that could have been maybe case studies there, used as an ebook, which would be the best places to take wedding photographs in this location, for example, something that would get me excited and would help me trust them. But yeah, that particular just the PDF with your prices wasn't gonna.
I was just gonna say it doesn't really generate any trust.
And you have to build trust because you shouldn't really be giving up your email address for anything.
No.
Because you're going to get some emails, and you want to try and keep your inbox fairly clean.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was just one that just didn't work. It didn't offer me any value. It was it was only valuable for them to get my email address.
And it's almost like if they know more about me, are they going to change the prices that they offer me? If that makes sense, like it kind of just really a lot of trust issues with that whole process in terms of just sending me a price list. I don't know where that's coming from or anything like that, and I feel like they're not being like transparent about their pricing, which I think people will really look for. Now, we've come to the end of our interview, and I have $1 million question, I guess, to ask, which is kind of to wrap it up. But besides getting in touch with you, which we'll talk about how to do that in a second, for any brand or organization like looking to generate more leads, where do you suggest they start? What would be the first thing they should do?
Okay, so to start, the first thing, or the thing that I think is most important, and something I actually overlooked in my career as not thinking was that important, but it's going back to what we said previously about creating like a buyer persona. So you know exactly who it is that you're writing for. I think it's very easy to assume that you know how to create this content because you know your business and that it could be done simply by finding out more about the business. But ideally you want to be having in-depth interviews with real people to find out what makes them tick. You want to create essentially a document that's who this person is. To like the nth degree. You want to really create a kind of so you can really picture in your head who it is, what their problems are,
exactly,
and what a typical day to day is like for this person. What they complain to their partners about. Things like this, so you can really help. You can really create content that they'll really want to read. So I think that for me would be the place to start. Before you do anything, have that first. Take the time to do those interviews, and find out how to write, what people want in terms of content.
Yeah. And it's a really fun exercise to do as well. It kind of makes you really think out of the box. Because like you said, once you're caught up in your own, I think with anything in life, once you're caught up with what you're doing, you feel like you understand it fully, or you understand, who's going to be receiving this information or whatever. I know it, I'm fine. But when you actually do the exercise, it makes you really think outside the box and push yourself in different ways to actually try to understand who you're actually trying to work with.
Also, the people that you're interviewing, like potential clients or past clients, they don't always know exactly what drove them to make a decision, and you have to unpack that. I mean, from my journalism experience as well, I remember there's something really stuck with me. I remember doing about an hour's interview with. I was writing community news, so you just had to have lots of contacts and people you knew in the community to get news. This was a long time ago now. This was really. That's just how we didn't really have internet was fairly sort of young in those days. We didn't really have I remember when I first started in the news, we had like one computer that was connected to the internet that we had to share.
Oh
wow. So you had to get out there and you had to interview people. And I remember sitting with one person for like an hour. We had a cup of tea. This was a very typical sort of thing we would do. And she was, there's not really much going on. And then at the end of the interview, she got up and she said, I must go. There was a fire at the garden centre that I have to go and help out with. And for some reason, she didn't think that was an important thing that I might be interested in knowing about, and I hadn't found out about it until that moment. So it was sometimes like you can have an interview and you really have to ask a lot of questions and kind of make them feel relaxed and that's quite an important quality, I think, in doing a good interview. And then you'll find that these sort of nuggets or really sometimes incredibly obvious things that they didn't think to mention that can shape your whole content strategy.
Exactly. It's kind of like the same exercise of like when you do the buyer persona, you don't know what the person is because you don't think that way. But then the people that, like you said, like the person you're interviewing, they don't even know either what's kind of important. They kind of just assume everything is normal for them, I guess. So it's like kind of just pulling things apart and kind of really looking deep into every aspect to actually get a better general understanding of who you want to target. Yeah. Now, I mentioned, I think anyone that listens to the podcast on a regular basis knows that this podcast will have an accompanying blog post where they can find more information about Josh and probably a link to his LinkedIn. But if people wanted to get in touch with you directly, do you have a website or what's the best way to get in touch?
I don't have a website actually. I have LinkedIn, so Joshua Saxon on LinkedIn. It's green, I think. There's another Joshua Saxon. There's a few Joshua Saxons. There's one that's a voice artist that seems to always put me to the top post of organic results. So not him, me. It's green, and I'm a freelancer. I work as an individual, but I have essentially a brand which is Relate Content Marketing.
Great.
Relate, because I think that's just the heart of, again, what I'm trying to do is you're creating content that really relates to people, rather than directly aggressively markets and advertisers. And by relating to people, you're helping to build that trust, and by the time they're ready to become to convert, you've nurtured them. So that's Relate Content Marketing. It's my brand, I suppose, personal brand.
And we'll do our best to include this all in the blog post that goes along with this episode. And as I expected, this was a very, very interesting conversation, and it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the Content Mix today, Josh. And I want to thank everybody for listening in. And for more perspectives on global content marketing and to learn more how to get in touch with Josh directly, be sure to check out veracontent.com/mix. And if you'd like to get in touch with us or if you have any interesting topics for an upcoming episode, feel free to reach out to us at mix@veracontent.com. And as always, keep tuning in to our podcast for more perspectives on topics related to content marketing. So thanks again, Josh, for your time this morning. And we hope to see you all soon. I hope to have you on the podcast again in the near future. You never know.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun. It's been really fun.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. So thank you. And thanks everyone again for tuning in.